But then we have green supply chain. Green supply chain has many items under it, many processes to do under it, many things to do under it. One of the two very important parts of green supply chain is green production and green logistics. There are many other items also in green supply chain. One of them is green packaging. We will not be able to discuss accurately or discuss thoroughly the green production. The green production is related to manufacturing engineering. It's related to what engineers do in factories. So maybe this will be beyond our scope to discuss. But one of what we will be highly able to discuss is green logistics. How to have a green warehouse and how to have green transport. This is a very essential part of supply chain management, is to manage your logistics, and a very essential part is to know how to manage the green, how to convert your warehouse to a green warehouse, or to manage your transport to be a green transport. Hopefully, I think maybe this year we will be able to talk about the green packaging. First, I think maybe we'll have 1 or 2 lectures about it. We'll talk about the packaging itself. In your study, you didn't study packaging. Now it's an important part of when you're planning for a supply chain, you must know the package. What is the package of the products? For example, I'll give you a very small example. If you recall the package of mobiles, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the package of mobile can take any shape. Now, as if they're standard packages, all mobiles as if they have the same package size, 2 or 3 sizes, all the mobile are moving around these two sizes. This packaging planning, they discovered it's better to have this type of packages for mobile. It's more economical. It's better in every aspect to have the package like this. So we will try to talk about packaging, and then moving from packaging to green packaging. This is an easy task to do, but first let us see how long we are going to take in the green logistics. Type. In green supply chain, if you recall the definition of green supply chain, we said briefly that we mixed the supply chain concept with the green thinking. Let us recall what we meant by green thinking. The word green implies 2 things: that you do not pollute and you preserve the resources. Natural resources. What meant by you do not pollute? What's meant by you do not pollute? That you try to decrease air, water, and solid waste pollution. What meant by that? To reduce air pollution, you must decrease what we called it emissions. emissions بالعربي اللي ترجموها الانبعاثات. يعني إيه الكلام ده؟ For example, all vehicles, cars, ship, airplanes, all types of transport modes are making emissions. It's the nature of the fuel that is made of, the fuel that make these vehicles move. You will have emissions. We'll discuss this emissions and their type in maybe in 2 or 3 slides. So your task, if you say, I have a green logistics or I have a green supply chain, then I have a green logistics, then I have green transport, that to assure these emissions are decreasing. I am contributing to the pollution of the earth by making some transportation decisions. My decisions must be green. This is one of the major things we have in transport, because as we are going to discuss, transport is one of the main contributors of air pollution all over the world. تمام؟ طيب. What about water pollution and solid waste pollution? Water pollution, maybe we as logisticians or in transport, we do not contribute a lot in water pollution. Sometimes the ships in the sea or vessels in the sea may have some leakage, may have some making some water pollution like this, but the main contributor is the package. As we discussed in the reverse, the Pacific patches, the garbage patches, and we said then that Egypt is the 6th country in the world that participating in plastic bags in the garbage patches. احنا سادس دولة في العالم بنشارك بالاكياس البلاستيك. The plastic bags is part of packaging process. It cannot be recycled. They find their way to the river and canals, then they find their way to the sea, and from the sea they go to the ocean and go to join the Pacific, sorry, it's the Pacific garbage patch. Other type of water pollution is dumping of harmful fluids. This is done usually by manufacturers, by factories. Some of the manufacturing process has some byproduct that is harmful. They should be treated before they dumped to the sewage, but some factories do not have this treatment equipment or treatment machines or whatever. So they dump this harmful material into the sewage. The sewage go to the sewage stations where water should be purified. After purification, they are returned to some of the canals in Egypt اللي احنا بنسميها مصارف and find their way to the ocean or to the sea or sometimes to the Nile. So this mainly caused by this type of pollution is mainly caused by factories. Also, air pollution is caused by factories from the emission coming out from the manufacturing process. Solid waste pollution is usually caused by people, by throwing garbage in the streets or in the woods or something like that. And usually we throw packages. If you look at the Pepsi or Coca-Cola cans, carton boxes, plastic bottles, they are either containers or packaging material. That's what we usually throw the main amount that we throw in garbage. So these are the main 3 items if we are talking about pollution. If we are talking about preserving resources, natural resources, you will find other types of environmental thinking in this area. We want to not consume a lot of resources. We want to preserve our natural resources. For example, if I am a transportation company, I want to decrease the amount of fuel I'm using, for example. This means I'm preserving more fuel in the earth for the future. If I'm a manufacturing company, I want to use less wood, because that means I am in my products, because that means I am preserving wood for the future. This is the way we think about in the preserving natural resource, how to use less natural resources. The last thing we are going to see is to discuss in this brief introduction to the topic. When we have green supply chain, in normal supply chain, we have two strategic objectives: either to be efficient, which meant lower cost, or you want to be responsive. You want to respond to the customer needs. In green supply chain, we have a third strategic objective, which is to be green. And as we discussed, to be green means do not pollute and preserve natural resources. This is what we mean by. Then you have another strategic objective. When you were studying the supply chain course, they started to tell you you have to make a trade-off between responsiveness and efficiency and all this stuff. Now you have another strategic objective. This strategic objective may be contradict with these two. Then the trade-off now is much more difficult, because maybe some of the decisions you are going to make in going green will decrease your responsive and increase your cost. It's damaging the other two strategic objectives. How much green I will be without damaging the other two objectives? This is a decision or discussion we will do maybe later in the course. حد عنده سؤال? Any questions?
لا تمام يا دكتور، بس أنا كنت عايز أسأل على حاجة.
يسأل.
هو في سؤال جه في الامتحانات السيفنز على الجرين سبلاي تشين دي
ما احنا اتكلمنا عليها في الديفينيشن. الإجابة عليها في السلايدز الأولانية.
تمام. هي بتقيمنا do not pollute و preserve the environment، صح؟
أيوة، ما الكلام ده أنا قلته قبل كده، أنا بعيده. الكلام ده
تمام. أنا قصدي بس عشان هي كانت جت في التشوز، جت الاتنين، وكان في اختيار اللي هو all of the above ده.
طيب.
فاللي اختار all of the above طلعت غلط.
اختار all of the above طلعت غلط. طب أنا هبص عليه. أنا هبص على السؤال.
تمام.
طيب. why companies started to go green? And why companies started إن هي think that we want to be or we want to have a green logistics. This is very important to understand. Once more, we will find the consumer pressure plays a big role. Actually, many of the environmental issues, the pressure of the people make it happen. because the people started as the same as reverse logistics. The people started to make some pressure on the uh, governments. The governments start to make some regulations. So the governments started, so the companies started to comply with these regulations. So the company started to make, for example, if I don't know if you're aware of it or not, I think in the 90s, if I'm not wrong, the European Union started to make some regulation about the cars and vehicles that work on the European side, on the European roads, that they should comply with certain emissions certificates. They called it, I think now, they started with Euro 1, I think now they called it Euro 4. Right? If the manufacturer of the car does not, the car itself does not satisfy this requirement, it will not be allowed to enter the European Union. If it's an European manufacturer, he must comply with this, or he will be closed down, for example, or may huge fines to the government. So the government started to push, the people pushed the government to do some action, and then the governments started to make the regulations for the industry. The same as evolution of the reverse logistics. But the second point is cutting the cost. طبعا all actions you are going to do to reduce your emission or to reduce your, to be more green, actually these actions are very highly costly. You will pay a lot for this action. But how come then going green will cut your cost? For example, I will decide, I will switch from, for example, from diesel cars, for example, or diesel pickup trucks to electric. It's much more costly. It's not economic to do this. It's not economic to do this actually, till now at least. Maybe in the future, you will, it will be somehow more economic. The governments started to make, for example, I will give you another example. In Egypt, maybe 3 or 4, maybe till 5 or 6 years ago, السولار اللي هو السولار اللي هو الديزل price, the diesel price was £1.10. And the gasoline اللي هو البنزين price was around, I think, £3, something like that. That means that the gasoline is 3 times more expensive than the diesel. The gasoline make less emission than diesel. Then if you are want to be a green, then you are going to move to gasoline. In Egypt, we don't move to gasoline. Why? Because it's more expensive till now. Now the diesel is £5 and the gasoline maybe 7 or something like that, 6.5 something. I mean, in many governments in Europe, in Southeast Asia, like Korea, Japan, Australia, in the United States, in Canada, in many parts of the world, they started to do what they called, I will make it more expensive to use this polluting resources. For example, in Europe, they have what they called it environmental tax on diesel. The diesel is cheaper, but it has more taxes. So the price of the diesel is almost the same price of gasoline. Almost. It's for example, in the UK, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the gasoline was one sterling, no, this is more than 3 or 4 years, and this may be 7 or 6 years or 10 years ago, something like that. The gasoline was 1 sterling pound 0.42, and the diesel was 1.38. The diesel, if the gasoline is sold with 1.4, then the diesel should be, for example, 0.9. But this difference is due to what they called it environmental taxes. For example, you have a transport company, you have 10 cars, 10 trucks. Most of the trucks are old. When the truck is getting old, it emits more emissions and pollute more. We will discuss this now. So I will not fix them. I will leave them like that, because in Egypt here, you go and when you make the renewal of the car license, there should be you do some examination for the vehicle. I know it's not accurate, it's not done properly, but in this examination, there should be what they called it environmental examination. In the environmental examination, they measure the emissions coming out from your car. In Egypt, if it's applied properly, I know it's not applied properly, but if it's done properly, the car will pass or fail the examination. So either they will agree to renew the license or not. In some parts of the world, they don't do this. They say, okay, we want your car, the taxes for your car is, for example, 200 pounds. You will pay 200 pounds if the emissions are 50, any number. But if the emissions are more than 50, you will pay 400 pounds. If the emissions are more than 100, you will pay 1,000 pounds. They measure the emission, whatever the emission it is, you are going to pay immediately. Because that means you were moving on the roads making these emissions. This is called environmental fine, غرامة بيئية. I want you to concentrate in what's meant by environmental tax and environmental fine. This is our type of fine or tax dedicated for environmental issues. We're going to discuss it in this slide also, but in few moments. Then you have this making more cost by letting people paying fines and penalties or paying taxes. What they are paying these penalties or taxes for polluting the environment. So now it turned to be more costly to use diesel. No, I will go and use gasoline. It will be cheaper for us. Now it's more. It's less costly to fix my vehicles and make all of them have no emissions, for example. So this is what we called it, the environmental fine or the environmental taxes. Any questions? أضعن سؤال؟
لا تمام.
Here in this bullet, we have two things to discuss. They are very important two things. What's meant by CSR and what's meant by greenhouse gases. CSR is what's meant by CSR, it's what we call corporate social responsibility. This is a theory evolved in the last 10 or 15 years. that company have social responsibilities, or corporates have social responsibilities towards the communities they are making profit from. It's considered not ethical that you are making profit from the community and in the same time you are not serving the community. What if you are not making you are making a profit from a community and you are damaging the environment of this community by pollution? Of course, this is totally unacceptable. So each company or each corporate must have what we called it the social responsibility toward the community. One of the social responsibilities toward the community, that you decrease your pollution, that you decrease the resources you are using. It's a commitment from the company towards the community they are working at or they are making profit from. That's why if one of you after graduation worked in an international company, you will find a great emphasis on green issues, on environmental issues, because they are taking this seriously, this CSR seriously, and they are trying to measure the improvement they have done to the environment each year or each quarter or whatever. So with the work, you'll find yourself working on projects concerning this corporate social responsibility. So this is the first thing that we wanted to discuss. Right. What's the greenhouse gases? Greenhouse gases, let us make some discussion. This discussion usually are given, maybe you have studied in your early childhood in the school. I know in the schools in Egypt, maybe in fourth or third grade, they teach you something like that. But it's, of course, it's very, عايز أقول إيه, they do it in a very simple manner. يعني, but now we'll discuss it in a little bit more details. طيب, what's the greenhouse? What's the meaning of greenhouse? Greenhouse evolved maybe 200 or 300 years ago when European colonization started. اللي هو الاستعمار الأوروبي ابتدى to some parts of Africa and Asia. They found in the jungle or in these hot countries, hot environment, yeah, or hot weather, يعني, a lot of very, very, very beautiful plants and flowers, very beautiful plants and flowers you'll find in these countries. They don't have these type of plants and flowers in Europe, for example. So they started to move them to Europe. Of course, Europe has a cold weather. They started to die. These plants and this flower cannot survive this cold weather. They need a hot weather to be able to survive. So they make an invention. The rich people or the nobles in their palaces, they started to build a glass house. House كده كله glass كده اللي انا عملته. Why glass? If you have the sun like this is the sun. The light of the sun coming out of the sun, or the sun rays, this sun rays actually include 3 types of rays. What we called it infrared rays, هي الأشعة تحت الحمراء, وlight الضوء العادي اللي احنا كلنا بنشوف فيه and what we called it ultraviolet rays. The glass is do a very strange thing. The glass allow for the طبعا for the light to come through it and return from it. يعني light will go like this. If it's light, it will go like this and pass through the glass from the other side of the glass. Here we want to focus about the infrared. The infrared will come like this. The glass allows the infrared to enter from one side to the another, but it will not allow it to enter again. It will be reflected inside this greenhouse till somewhere it opens. So the infrared, which give us the heat, the heat of the sun comes from this infrared rays. So the glass is not allowing all of the infrared to get out from it. It will not allow only some, and the other will be locked inside this greenhouse. So the temperature of this greenhouse will rise, and then the weather inside it will be suitable to growing of these plants. They took it from Africa or Southeast Asia or India or these places. This is the greenhouse type. What's about the greenhouse gases? حد عنده سؤال الأول؟
تمام.
What about the greenhouse gases? تعالوا نشوف. If we say this is the Earth, around the Earth, in the atmosphere around the Earth, there is a thing called the ionosphere. The ionosphere, mainly, it's composed from many layers. Mainly, what we want to talk about here, it's the ozone layer. Also, we have, once again, we have the sun. And the sun is emitting its rays. The ionosphere will allow for the light to enter to the sun. Okay. Right. The ionosphere, this ozone layer, for example, will reflect most of the ultraviolet. Will be reflected. Only a portion of the ultraviolet will be allowed to enter the Earth. Right. What about the infrared? The infrared enters the Earth. When the Earth is getting heated, it will emit heat. It will emit infrared and will go out of the Earth's atmosphere. This is the normal thing or the normal mechanism that working in the relation between the sun rays and the Earth. طيب تعالوا نشوف. I will write some chemical equations here. I want you to follow me. It's not important to study this equation or thoroughly understand, but try to follow me. The gasoline, البنزين يعني, the chemical composition, it has this chemical composition, C6H6. The gasoline inside the engine, mainly it's reacting with oxygen, giving us under the spark, giving us motion for the vehicle, and CO2 plus H2O. CO2 the carbon dioxide, H2O ده طبعا اللي هو الووتر vapor. This reaction is done for what we called a proper functioning motor. يعني ايه proper functioning motor؟ موتور مظبوط تمام التمام، جديد نوفي او مظبوط 100%. if the motor of the vehicle is tuned very accurately, very its performance is very it's an excellent performance, this will occur. And this is not a motor that have some error or malfunction or عطلان، لا ده موتور سليم 100%. This will occur in the engine of the motor. طبعا the carbon dioxide and the water vapor is coming out from the exhaust، بيطلعوا من الشكل. عارفين لما يقول لك الموتور بيعرق، الناس بقى اللي بتقعد مع الميكانيكيه وهي بتصلح عربيتها يقول لك يا بيه ده الموتور بيعرق، اللي هو تلاقي الموتور الصبح ينقط شويه نقط ميه كده من الشكمان. ليه؟ لانه هو بيطلع H2O. H2O لو اتكثفت البخار الميه ده، لو حصل له تكثيف نتيجه البرد مثلا او حاجه زي كده الصبح، هينزل شويه نقط ميه من الايه؟ من الشكمان. طيب this carbon dioxide is considered one of the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases we usually refer to as GHG. Why it's considered a greenhouse gases? This carbon dioxide, sorry. This carbon dioxide coming up in the air and stay in the ionosphere of the earth. If it's have a lot of quantities, it will make like a circle around the earth or sphere, another layer of the ionosphere. هيبقى طبقة من طبقات الغلاف الجوي carbon dioxide. What's the problem of this carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide may not allow some parts of the infrared to leave the Earth atmosphere. Then it will be locked inside the Earth as if the Earth now is converted to a new greenhouse. The air will be locked inside the Earth atmosphere. Sorry, the infrared, the heat is going to be locked inside the atmosphere. And this will make it the Earth temperature rise. It will make the Earth temperature rise. And this rise of Earth temperature started to make some climate changes. Started to make some damage effect to the environment. That's why in Arabic we translate it to الاحتباس الحراري, global warming. This is what is global warming, is one of the main factors of global warming. So because the greenhouse gases are many gases, we are going to discuss some of them now. This is why we called it احتباس حراري. الحرارة اتحبست جوه الكرة الأرضية أو جوه المناخ الكرة الأرضية اللي احنا عايشين عليها. طبعا درجات الحرارة بتبتدي يحصل لها إن هي تزيد. This global warming caused the meltdown of some of the parts of the North Pole and South Pole. طبعا these parts is having a huge effect on the environment we are living at. So this is why we call the transport companies our main contributor of greenhouse gases. We are all the transport company, whether it's air transport, whether it's water transport, whether it's land transport, we are contribute a lot of these greenhouse gases. This is for the proper functioning engine. What if the engine is not functioning properly? And this is very common. You know, when you go with your vehicle or your car to the service center, and they will tell you, or some of the mechanics, and they will tell you, we are going to adjust the motor using the computer. لو يقول لك هظبط لك العربية على الكمبيوter. What actually they do, they try to set up the engine to function properly, and this type of combustion to occur inside the engine. Like, what if the engine is not properly functioning? The reaction will be as follows. يعني إن الرياكشن اللي بيحصل في الانجن هيبقى كالآتي: C6H6 ده هيطلع لي what we called it carbon monoxide زائد H2O. طبعا كربون مونوكسيد وحاجات تانية، بس mainly carbon monoxide. This is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide. Why we called it carbon monoxide? It contained only one atom of carbon, while this contained 2 atoms of carbon. Carbon monoxide we call carbon monoxide an active gas. Active gas means it's not stable. All active gases want to convert to an stable gas. And I'm trying to simplify things as possible. This carbon monoxide will go up in the air and will meet the ozone. The ozone is O3, three atoms of oxygen combined together. The O3 is an active gas also. So both active gases are met in the higher layers of the atmosphere. They will result in carbon dioxide and O2. Then this ozone layer will start to be more thin. This what reached to its peak in the 90s. More than 20 years ago, it reaches its peak. The ozone layer disappeared from some of its parts in the higher layers of the atmosphere. What means by this disappearance? Means, sorry. This means the following. The ultraviolet coming out of the sun will totally enter to the Earth environment. The ultraviolet, if you are subjected to ultraviolet for prolonged time or large quantities, it is main contributor to skin cancer. Some of the skin cancer types are deadly types of cancer. The ozone layer disappeared mainly from the parts at Northern Europe. That's why in the 90s, they considered there were a huge awareness about this skin cancer. And this make people make the pressure. In early 90s, they discovered that the ozone layer, mainly the main two gases that make this ozone layer disappear are, or 3 gases, are the carbon monoxide coming out from the engines. More important than that was the aerosols. You know, this like the deodorant and all this stuff, they put some gas in it, so they started to replace this gas with another type of gases that do not react with ozone. And of course, the Freon F12, it's the Freon ones to fill in our air condition. When Freon F12, when you fill, for example, an air conditioning with it, you will pay something around 20 pounds, or it's very cheap gas to produce. But now it's replaced by Freon 22 or Freon 32, and these are much more expensive gas, maybe 10 times. But in these countries, and I think in many countries in the world, the use of Freon F12 is criminalized. يعني it's جريمه لو حد ايه لقوه بيشتغل بالفريون الايه ال 12 ده. it's not produced anymore in the world, I think. يعني so these gases contributed in the what we call the ozone hole or something like that, which is the ozone layer disappeared from some of the parts of the world. This reaction here is for engine that are not properly tuned. This can be fixed if you went to the mechanic or we went to the service center. They will tune the engine. هيظبطوا الموتور بتاع العربية. They will tune the engine and it will return to be functioning like this. What you see here in Egypt of these items or these vehicles that have their engine smoke, مش smoke, we called it smog, coming out of the engine, اللي هو الدخان الأسود اللي طالع. This engine must be either replaced or it need to be fixed more than it just be tuned on the computer or something like that. الموتور ده مفوت. These engine, they do not burn gasoline or diesel only. They burn the engine oil with it. The engine oil find its way to the inside the engine and being burned with the gasoline and the or diesel. When the engine oil is burned, the list of gases coming out is huge, and they have a direct impact on human health. That's why many of people who are living in Cairo have some chest problems. They have some allergies in chest or lungs, have some allergies or something like that. All these are triggered by the pollution we are breathing in and out every day. As I told you earlier, maybe in the first lecture when we talked about the green supply chain, then if you are coming up early in the morning, maybe 6 or 7 in the morning to Cairo, if you are living outside Cairo in, for example, Tajamma or Shuru or something like that, Sheikh 6 October, Sheikh Zayed, you will find a black cloud above Cairo. You will see it very clearly. This is the gases, these gases that coming out from thousands of vehicles that their engine must be fixed. They are polluting the city a lot. Most of them are either public transports or transport vehicles. So the transport company if they have this conscious about the corporate social responsibility, they are making profit out of us, and in the same time they are polluting our city and making us have some diseases, some allergies. This is should be not acceptable by the people who are living in Cairo. So once again, we must have some sort of pressure to be made. The last thing I want to cover in this area or this topic, there is a natural ecosystem made by God, طبعا, when God created the earth, God put some eco-balance inside this earth. Because, for example, we people, we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. All living animals do the same. humans and animals are breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. How Earth getting rid of this carbon dioxide? It's getting rid of this carbon dioxide by trees and plants. The trees and plants take the carbon dioxide from the Earth atmosphere to convert it into food and then emits out oxygen, the reverse of our system. So this is a normal balanced made by God, that people produce carbon dioxide and consume oxygen, plants consume carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. So the balance between carbon dioxide and oxygen will stay the same. When we invented vehicles, we added more carbon dioxide. If we just added more carbon dioxide and we kept the plants that, and especially the forests and jungles in the earth, they will be able to consume all the carbon dioxide we are producing, even from the vehicles. But humans make the problem worse. We started to cut out the jungle and forests. The normal expansion of the people, we want more land to live on, we want more land to cultivate, to eat, because the jungle and forests, we do not produce food. We want to cultivate, for example, wheat or any type of food. It's very common in Africa and in Latin America, especially the Amazon jungle, that the people there start to cut huge areas of the jungles to replace them with cultivating crops. Crops means corn or wheat, الذرة, القمح، مش عارف ايه الحاجات. So the ability of Earth to consume the carbon dioxide that we are producing is decreased. So the carbon dioxide will become more harmful, become accumulating more in the Earth environment. حد عنده سؤال؟ طب انا بس هعمل حاجه كده بس عشان ايه نشيل الكلام ده. We still have 2 points to discuss here in the drivers. If you recall what we said earlier today, that in this point, the cutting cost points, we said that we have what we called it environmental. In this point, we said that we have what we called it environmental taxes and environmental fines. The environmental taxes and the environmental fines are collected from the people to be spent by the government only in environment improving projects. تاني، الفلوس دي اتلمت، الضرائب البيئية أو الغرامات البيئية دي بيسموها ضرائب وغرامات موجهة. It's called a directed taxes or fines. موجهة لإيه؟ Directed to what? Directed to be spent on improving the environment only. It will not be spent in any public project. يعني we will not get this tax or fine and make school or build school from it or build a hospital or build a road. No. They are collected from the people, put in a special fund, and start to spend on environmental projects. What environmental projects like what? For example, cultivating trees. And in a country like Denmark usually was covered by 25% of the land was covered by forests. في غابات شجرية كده، أشجار. Due to the expansion of people, due to the manufacturing of wood and papers, they took out of this 25%, took out 12%. In 2000, they discovered that only 13% of the land now is covered by forest. Denmark was one of the early countries in the world to put environmental tax. So they decided to direct some of this environmental tax to regain the 25% of the land to be covered by forest. They have a huge project. I think by 2025, they will reach that almost 25% of the land will be covered by forest. They start to cultivate more trees. You'll find the same in England. You'll find the same in many parts of the world. This is one of the environmental projects, because if you increase the green areas, you will be able to, these trees will help consume carbon dioxide in these areas and produce oxygen, and the environment will be better. It's a very simple equation, actually. Have more trees, it will help the environment. So this is one of the projects that is done. Another type of project, is very important project, is to give financial aids to companies. For example, I make a proposal and go to the environmental agencies, and I'll tell them, I want to have a financial aid, مثلا, for 2 million pounds. Why 2 million pounds? I will buy, for example, 10 new pickup cars for my company, and all of these 10 pickup cars will be run by gasoline, not run by diesel, because the diesel is more polluting than gasoline. It will be run by natural gas. يعني احنا في مصر, in Egypt, the government tried to support companies in converting their vehicles from diesel or gasoline to natural gas. Of course, the natural gas in Egypt has some issues. The type of the natural gas discovered in Egypt mainly is harmful for the engines. They are trying to solve these issues, I know, but and maybe they do not reach, but the government support this, because the emission coming out from a natural gas engine, almost half the emission coming out of a gasoline engine. So it will decrease a lot the emissions. The government, مثلا, moved now towards, I think they were celebrating this week by the production of the first electric bus in Egypt. The electric bus has no emission. Of course, the electric bus has no emission, but there is a problem. The electricity itself, it's produced by burning natural gas. So we'll have some emission, but natural gas emissions. يعني الكهرباء عندنا في مصر بتتولد عن طريق ان هو بيحرق غاز طبيعي. فحتى لو عملنا كل العربيات كهرباء، ما احنا لسه هنستهلك الكهرباء اللي جايه من حريق الغاز الطبيعي، فالإيميشنز لسه موجوده. تمام؟ But at least the government start to pay to the this loans or financial aid the governments give, usually with 0 interest rate or with a very small interest rate, يعني مثلا 0.5 أو حاجة زي كده. طبعا this financial aid help companies to move towards green issues. And for example, I have a huge warehouse, and this warehouse, part of it is refrigerated warehouse. I will go to the government, I want to buy and have some solar panels to produce electricity. I will preserve the environment by not consuming a lot of electricity, and I'm producing electricity from a clean way that I have no emissions. The government will give me the fund. مثلا give me 1 million pounds, and I will return it on 4 years without any interest rate, or with, as I said, with a very small interest rate. Right. The last thing we want to discuss here is the pressure of the NGO and the governments. The pressure of the NGO and governments, actually, it's a part of this consumer pressure. It's the mechanism that consumers, one of the mechanisms actually, that the consumers start to make pressure. the NGOs NGOs اللي هي non-governmental organizations يعني started to make some blacklists. These are the most polluting transport companies in the country. 10 polluting, so people will start not to work with them. For example, as if you declared, for example, يعني it's not true طبعا, بس for example, if you declared Aramex as one of the polluting countries in the, when you are purchasing a thing مثلا by phone or send, you tell them not send me to Aramex with Aramex. If Aramex will, you are going to send it with Aramex, I will not accept it. This is a consumer pressure. This is how consumer can make a pressure. تمام. طبعا, and the government start to make some pressure on the mainly on the factories and transport companies to go more green. حد عنده سؤال؟ Any questions شباب؟
لا تمام يا دكتور.
لا تمام.
طيب تعالوا نشوف كده ناخد لكم الغياب.
طب دكتور هو دي برضو جه عليها سؤال في الإكزام برضو.
ايه السؤال اللي جاي يقول؟
السؤال اللي جه اللي هو كان بيقول الأوريجين اوف ريفرس لوجيستكس.
ايوه, ما ده الريفرس لوجيستكس, مش ده.
تمام. ده
هما, ما انا قلت لو اخدت بالك, انا قلت في الاول ايه؟ قلت قلت في الاول ان احنا الاوريجين بتاع الجرين لوجيستكس هو نفسه الاوريجين, او واحد من الاوريجينز بتاعت الجرين لوجيستكس هو نفسهم الاوريجين بتاع الريفرس. يعني احنا عندنا الريفرس ابتدى بكونسيومر بريشر بس, لكن الجرين ابتدى بكونسيومر بريشر, ان الجفرمنتس ابتدت تغلي الحاجه اللي بتلوث البيئه, ان الشركات من الكوربريت سوشيال, يعني السورسز بتاعه الجرين او الدرايفرز اللي خلت الجرين يحصل اكتر شويه من الايه الريفرس. الريفرس هو حاجه واحده, ان الكونسيومر هم اللي عملوا الايه مينلي البريشر في الاول. تمام
تمام يا دكتور.
طيب عمر سيد حسن. عمر سيد حسن. فريد.
ايوه يا دكتور فريد.
إيه احمد ايهاب. احمد ايهاب. احمد مازن. احمد مازن. اسامه مصطفى.
ايوه يا دكتور.
جان ميشيل.
ايوه يا دكتور.
زياد. زياد ايمن. سيف الدين شهاب.
ايوه يا دكتور.
سيف الدين ضياء.
ايوه يا دكتور.
صفيه.
Yes, sir.
عائشه.
Yes, doctor.
عمر طارق.
ايوه يا دكتور.
عمر مصطفى.
ايوه يا دكتور.
عمرو حسام.
ايوه يا دكتور.
فادي هاني.
ايوه يا دكتور.
لؤي.
ايوه يا دكتور.
مازن.
لا.
ماشي يا مازن.
ايوه يا دكتور. ايوه يا دكتور.
محمد خالد. محمد خالد. محمد سراج.
نعم يا دكتور.
محمد هاني.
ايوه يا دكتور.
مريم رمضان. مريم. مصطفى إلهامي.
ايوه يا دكتور.
يمنى.
أيوة يا دكتور.
يوسف أسامة.
ايوه يا دكتور.
يوسف سمير. يوسف سمير. ده بيحضر في حتة تانية صح. يوسف محمد السيد. محمد عادل. عبد الهادي. إسراء.
أيوة يا دكتور.
خالد وليد. مصطفى عادل. حد ما سمعش اسمه؟
ايوه يا دكتور.
اسمك ايه؟
محمد اسامه.
محمد أسامة يا ابني، ما احنا ندهنا محمد أسامة في الأول. أحمد أسامة ولا محمد أسامة؟
لا، محمد اسامه، محمد اسامه الرفاعي. انا يوم الاحد 8
يوم
ونص.
الأحد 8 ونص. ماشي.
وانا يا دكتور النهارده بس 10 ونص.
حاضر حاضر. محمد أسامة كمال الرفاعي.
ايوه يا دكتور.
حد 10 ونص. اسمك ايه يا ابني التاني؟
ده النهارده مش
اسمك ايه قول.
ماهر محمد.
ماهر محمد.
مهم.
ماهر محمد. اوكي يا ماهر. طيب اشوفكم الاسبوع الجاي يا شباب.
تمام يا دكتور، شكرا.
شكرا.